You don't have to answer if it doesn't feel good to you. But my question is, does the monkhood have the same issues that you see in the Catholic Church or in religions, that young boys, moving into these spaces with men who have taken vows of celibacy and molestation and issues occurring?
No hay problema.
Yeah, he said no problem, I'll answer.
Y eso sucede todo, ¿no? Eso lamentablemente. Eso
he said, unfortunately, this happens all over the world in many different contexts.
Pero por lo menos su linaje hasta ahora realmente no tuvieron problema eso.
In our specific very particular lineage to us, we haven't had such a big problem.
Drikung Kagyu realmente no tiene mucho problema grande, ¿no?
Yeah, like Drikung Kagyu doesn't have big problems like this.
Pero dentro de budismo tibetano sí algo.
But in Tibetan Buddhism, yes, you hear about those things. It's very hard for me to understand how someone could consider themselves practicing spirituality.
Porque su palabra es muy bonito realmente, ¿no? Como Buda,
beautiful words and can sound like a Buddha.
A veces su acción no matcha con la palabra.
But then sometimes actions don't match with the words.
Eso sucede muchas.
And unfortunately that happens.
Incluso algunos grandes maestros.
And sometimes you hear of great masters doing this. That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, you've got normal problems already in society. It's supposedly a spiritual tradition should be helping to solve these problems.
Porque ellos agrega eso a veces, ¿no?
Not adding to the problem.
No.
Integrating consciousness is a channel devised to explore a plethora of modalities accessible in supporting the collective in the exploration and expansion of self, and ultimately integrating what we've learned. The planet is shifting its vibration. Old paradigms and concepts are being challenged. Science is shifting, supporting, and merging with the teachings of ancient spiritual beliefs. The masses are feeling the shift, ultimately and collectively expanding consciousness. We are in an incredibly exciting time, yet many of us lack communities, guides, leaders, and teachers to turn to for support because we don't know how to find them. My name is Lelanea Fulton, and I'm a spiritual transcendental mindset coach and unity consciousness mentor. My intention is to create a space that supports individuals seeking personal growth by providing a wealth of knowledge, tools, strategies, insights, practitioners, and language. This will be achieved through the diverse guests I invite to this podcast. So your free and easy support of subscribing, rating, and reviewing this podcast is paramount, as is how such information can move through the platform algorithms. So if you are with us via Spotify, then you can support us by following, hitting the notification bell, and rating us with a 5-star review. If you're with us via YouTube, then you can support us by going to the channel, subscribing, and going to your favorite episodes and leaving a thumbs up, as well as a comment on how this episode has supported you in your growth. Also, every month we will offer free and easy ways that you can acquire free coaching sessions and more with your favorite practitioner. I would also like to invite you to please share any episode that moves you. You never know when a small act of kindness can support a huge energetic shift in a person's life. We are all here to support one another through acts of kindness, and to pass along information is a tremendous act of service. So thank you, and may you recognize the powerful creator you are.
Hello, beautiful beings. I am back for part 2 with Drupon Lama Dorje, and translator and director of Retreat. I'm really excited to continue our conversation. In this particular episode, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the retreat, the foundation, and also into Lama Dorje's unbroken spoken lineage, which is the Drikung Kagyu lineage, as well as delving a bit deeper into his 4-year solo retreat that has empowered him and led him to the space in place to be able to start his really beautiful retreat in Costa Rica.
Amazing. Muchísimas gracias. We're so happy to be here.
So I was wondering if you would take us a little bit deeper into Drikung Kagyu lineage that the Lama has been with since the age of 5. I mean, that's a really huge undertaking at such a young age. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on your experience and whether it was your decision or a parent's decision for you to enter into that lineage and what compelled you to do so.
Okay, yo, donde yo vivo, llama un pequeño ¿cómo se llama? En pueblo, llama Limi.
Where I was originally born is a very small village in the Himalayas called Limi.
Ese como la frontera como hoy día frontera de China y Nepal, ¿no?
Nowadays, it's on the border of China and Nepal.
Entonces, Endi como no son parte tibetano.
Before, what it was considered was part of the Himalayan
Tibetano.
region of Tibet.
Todo está como su, ¿cómo se llama? Su cultura, todo lo
It is
mismo.
like the kind of ancient or indigenous cultures of Tibet.
Entonces, todo el pueblo budismo tibetano y el mismo linaje Drikung Kagyu.
And so where I was born, it's all of the people are of the lineage of Drikung Kagyu in Tibetan Buddhism.
Entonces, pueblo muy chiquitito, muy pequeño, más o menos 70 familias.
So it was a very small village, like maybe 70 families.
Dentro de la montaña, ¿no?
And we're like in the mountain range there.
Entonces, gente vive normalmente parte de campo, parte la nomadic.
So people would live, kind of like a rural lifestyle and nomadic lifestyle.
Eso vive, ¿no? Entonces, yo cuando nací pequeño, y todos somos 6 hermanos, total incluido en mí.
And so when, I was born in a family, we're now like 6 brothers and sisters, including myself.
Yo soy cuarto.
I'm the 4th.
Y yo desde pequeño, cerca de mi casa tengo un templo budismo lineage.
And near my house, there was a Tibetan Buddhist temple.
Y nosotros, todos los monjes chicos, tenemos uno mismo, jugamos juntos. Entonces,
And as a child, I would play with the young monks.
y yo siempre me gusto mucho con ellos.
And
¿no?
I really liked playing with them.
Y yo quería ser como monje budista.
And so I decided I wanted to be a monk.
Y como ayudado por mis maestros y mis padres.
And my parents and my teachers kind of backed me in that decision.
Entonces digo yo, uno maestro, digo tal vez él van a ser monje.
And the teacher said, I think he would be a good monk.
Pero yo seguramente alguna tendencia kármicos pasado tiene una conexión fuerte, ¿no?
Surely I had a very strong karmic tendency in order for that to happen.
Y entonces ya entré desde 5 años, chiquitito, ¿no?
And so at
Monasterio.
5 years old, I entered.
Pero y nosotros como escuela para nosotros
For us,
tibetanos.
that's considered school.
Y aprender con filosofía, oración básicos. ¿no?
So we learn about the philosophy of life and we learn about prayer.
Y yo puedo visitar a mi padre una vez a la semana.
And I could go
¿no?
visit with my family once a week.
Muy tranquilo, ¿no?
It was very tranquil and calm.
Y entonces ese linaje realmente ha ayudado para cambiar la vida, ¿no?
And so this lineage really helped and changed my life.
Entonces ese linaje nosotros fundamentalmente es práctica, linaje de práctica,
So
¿no?
this is a lineage, this is considered a practice lineage.
Todos nosotros maestros como la mayoría como grandes yogis.
And so really all of the great masters of this lineage are great yogis.
Como primero maestro llama Tilupa.
So the first master was called Tilopa.
Su como directamente conectado la Buda, ¿no? Buda Shakyamuni.
And Tilopa is directly connected to Buddha Shakyamuni,
Buda histórica, ¿no?
the historic Buddha.
Entonces, ya Siddhartha, hoy día conocemos.
Now known
¿no?
as Siddhartha,
¿no?
you know.
Entonces, Tilupa es grande yogi de India, como tal vez Bangladesh, no sé exactamente.
And Tilopa was like a Indian master,
Yeah.
maybe of Bangladesh.
Y Naropa,
And then there was his student Naropa.
todos son yogis.
They were all yogis.
No solo nada ser monje como la monática.
What that means is they weren't like monastics. It means that they were kind of lay people, like had normal lives and became yogis.
Como gran realización, ¿no?
And they became realized masters.
Hay otro llama Marpas.
And then his student's name was Marpa.
Marpa es la tibetano.
Marpa was Tibetan.
Su discípulo Milarepa,
And his student was Milarepa,
tibetano, todo eso,
also
¿no?
a Tibetan.
Gambupa tibetano,
Then Gampopa was Tibetan.
Pangotrupa.
And Phagmo Chupa.
Ahí llama Jigten Sungun.
And then came Jigten Sungun.
Jigten Sungun es nosotros fundador específico nosotros de ese
And so
linaje.
then Jigten Sungun became the founder of our specific branch of the lineage, which was the Drikung Kagyu.
Y entonces, Jigten Sungun muchos años, un corazón discípulo de Buda histórica, como conectado.
Jigten
Jigten
Sungun.
Sungun.
It was the ¿Cómo?
Mucho corazón discípulo de Buda Shakyamuni, su entero vida, muchos años.
Oh, okay. And so Jigten Sungun, the founder of the lineage, was considered to be, in his previous lives, one of the heart disciples of the Buddha.
Entonces ahí él fundó de ese linaje, ¿no?
And
En
so he
Tíbet, ¿no?
founded this lineage in Tibet.
Entonces él como principalmente como la linaje puso una práctica, ¿no?
And so he principally established this lineage as a practice
Como
lineage,
retiro, ¿no?
meaning like people go into retreat.
Y hace especialmente 3 años, 3 días, ¿no?
And they specifically do the 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days.
Una vez él como tiene meditante 3 lugares, cada lugar tiene 50,500 personas meditando, cada 3 lugares. 50,000.
50,000 en
Yeah,
cada de los.
Yeah, 50,500.
50,000. Okay, so at any given time, you know, this was such a great master and people followed him so much. He actually had 3 retreat locations in the mountains, and in each of those locations there were 50,500 people meditating. So he was just at each of those 3 places.
Más de 100, ¿no?
So it was just like, it was over 150,000 people meditating at a time, that he was such a great master.
Fue como impactoso en Tíbet,
It
¿no?
was extremely impactful.
Mayoría todo meditando realmente realización.
And all of these meditators really were achieving high levels of realization.
Entonces, eso linaje muy especial, yo siempre digo,
So
¿no?
this is a very special lineage.
Más como, por supuesto, importante teórica, estudio, filosofía, ¿no?
Of course, theory and study is very important.
Pero más importante poner en la práctica
But
eso,
what's
¿no?
most important is that we embody this wisdom and put it into practice.
Es realmente cambia la vida.
And it
¿no?
really changes your life.
Y por eso mi personalmente, Lama comenté anterior, mi cambia de vida en la retiro, ¿no?
And so really, I spoke to you before that my life changed significantly in retreat.
Y hoy día no existe ese como sistema, no como muchas personas, pero meditando seguido.
And we still maintain this system of meditation. We don't, of course, have that same number of people meditating, but we still have the same system.
Ya, entonces yo como eso, siempre como sueño ese, quiero hacer eso como un santuario de ese retiro solitario.
And so really my dream for so long has been that I want to create a solitary retreat sanctuary.
Entonces, estoy en la Costa Rica por eso.
And so that's what we're doing in Costa Rica.
Just want to reflect back. What I heard is that this was not monastic, like this was for everyday people to participate in.
Yeah, cualquier persona.
Cualquiera, exactly.
And so does that mean that those who are participating and who are involved are not living a life of sobriety or celibacy, that they have families, they have intimacy, and all that of which is a part of the everyday life?
Por supuesto, por ejemplo, toda mi familia, por ejemplo, ¿no?
Like exactly,
Padre,
like for
hermano.
example, in my family,
Yo practico eso,
they're
¿no?
all practitioners,
Pero no monjes,
but they're not a monk.
Ellos tienen familia,
They
tienen
have
todo.
families and everything.
Y entonces, por eso ahí tienen 2 caminos,
So
¿no?
there's kind of 2 paths.
Uno puede ir como monástico, una iniciación.
One is kind of like a monastic path.
Porque dentro de mi hermano y yo, por ejemplo, ¿no? Mi hermano muy monástico, como mi hermano Lama Yatso, es como monástico moral. Yo más yogi, el linaje de yogi, ¿no? Entonces, diferente.
So he's saying, like, for example, even between, he has another brother, and his brother is also a monk. And he said, even between my brother and I, there's kind of a distinction. My brother's more like scholastic and in the monastic way, and I'm more of like the yogi path.
¿No? Entonces, parte cada uno tiene una decisión de un camino,
And
¿cierto?
so there's decisions within the path.
Si tú entras a la monástico como su ley, ¿no? Como la tenemos, 250 votos, ¿no?
If you enter as a monastic, like as a monk, for example, then there's like 250 vows.
Un compromiso,
And
¿no?
there's commitments.
Pero práctica no va a cambiar, lo
But
mismo,
the
¿no?
practice doesn't change much, though.
Pero cambia solo un personal como ¿cómo la llama? Con voto puede
But
ser.
it changes your personal commitments.
Entonces, eso diferencia, ¿no?
That's the difference.
Y en tibetano, mayoría, yo le he comentado, época de, no sé, Marpa, Milarepa, mayoría como laicos.
Como upasika.
Como upasika.
Yeah, so a majority of the people in the time of like these masters were actually called upasikas, which is like lay practitioners.
Entonces, especialmente usted sabe, budismo normalmente filosofía de la vida, ¿no?
Like Buddhism is actually a philosophy of life, or the way that life works.
Más que como algo la religión, digamos,
It's like something beyond religion.
¿entiendes? Y entonces por eso, como nosotros tibetanos, como fue escuela, ¿no?
Like for me, going to the monastery was going to school.
Escuela, como aprender sobre de vida.
And you're learning about how to live life properly.
Final hace mejor persona,
And
¿no?
really it's about becoming a better person.
Es un trabajo personal, ¿no?
And it's an inner work. It's a personal work.
Nada que algo externo.
It doesn't have to do with the external.
Yes.
I do just want to add, though, just to clarify, like as a Westerner, sometimes it's so good for us to clarify some of these things that, yes, there are like pathways as like lay practitioners, which means you can have a family. Of course, you can be in a committed relationship, but especially when we start talking about sex and we start talking about like substances, I think it's so important to clarify because, you know, those yogis, when they have a really high state of realization, can transform the desire that occurs in those experiences. And so actually, it's actually really recommended, even if we do have our partners or like and live kind of a modern life, that we really do have some level of renunciation, particularly around the substances, because we end up losing consciousness. And then when you lose consciousness, you just start creating negative. You can cuss and you can kind of make decisions you wouldn't normally make. You can, you know, really break apart families with those decisions. And so it's really kind of, it's not, it's, yeah, again, it all comes to personal vows, but it is really recommended in order to do no harm and to begin transforming our thoughts. It's better to have a full state of consciousness. So that's one. And then also one of the other 5 precepts is around sexual relations. It's really important to, it doesn't like say don't have sexual relations, but it says have a committed relationship. And so, and then also watching how we're utilizing our sexual energy, like not trying to like utilize that to manipulate or to get certain positions or to draw attention to ourselves. Be modest, you know, be modest because we don't want to provoke desire in ourselves, but we also don't want to provoke desire in others. We want to be wholesome. And so those are 2 of the 5 vows actually that one takes as a lay practitioner.
Just a gentle reminder that if you're doing the inner work or feeling called for deeper self-exploration and transformation, that my practice is here to support you. My role as a transcendental mindset coach is to serve as a compassionate guide and mirror, reflecting your inner brilliance and potential because you came to this life with everything it is that you need to align with your path and purpose. In doing this, I offer a range of services tailored to meet the unique needs of each client, incorporating the support of evidence-based coaching techniques, meditation, mindfulness practices, Gene Keys shadow work, pattern recognition, somatic work, inner parts work, kinetic, and breath work to facilitate inner balance and alignment alongside being trauma-informed. We will work in tandem as I support you in integrating or embodying your newfound awareness and heightened openness to a higher form of consciousness. It is my intention to support you as you architecturally design the reality you want to participate in and the life that you want to live. My practice supports you in being a masterful creator of intentions. You can contact me via my website. The link is in the show notes. So thank you, and please enjoy the remainder of the episode.
I love this, and I love that you elaborated on this. Thank you. I think it's very helpful, you know, because I think for a lot of Westerners, to be a monk or a monastic, we look at religion, right? And that's how we understand in terms of priesthood. And there, as we all know, are a lot of issues in that world. And so I think people will translate their perspective of the complications or issues that exist in that world onto other traditions. And I love to be able to articulate and to learn and delve deeper into what makes this unique and the mindset behind this lifestyle in terms of monkhood.
Yeah, just to add like one thing to it, and then we can go back what Lama shared, is that it's considered in this kind of tradition, it's considered like, these aren't like restrictions. These are acts of mindfulness. When I'm mindful of my speech, so no harsh speech, it's helping my own mind to be peaceful. When I'm mindful of how I utilize my sexual energy, it's helping myself to be whole with myself and how I show up in partnerships and in the world. when I'm mindful of whether I use substances of like taking things or substances of what kind of websites am I looking at, what kind of shows am I looking at, anything that becomes like nutrition of the mind or the food, so like hi baby. So we all got a little animal kingdom. And so, yeah, any of the kind of substances can be toxic or they can be wholesome. And so it becomes an act of mindfulness, whether I'm, being generous or whether I'm taking things that are, without asking if I can borrow them. It leads to other things. So it's not a restriction. It's more like, this is my act of mindfulness to really show up as the best person that I can. And it starts to purify our mind and all this other wisdom starts to arise.
So like a vow of intention.
About an intention and integrity. Like I be in integrity with my whole self here.
I'd like to ask a question, and my apologies if it feels a little on the darker side. And, I can edit this out. You don't have to answer if it doesn't feel good to you. But my question is does the monkhood, does the lineage, or, are you privy to Buddhism, especially in terms of monkhood, have the same issues that you see in the Catholic Church or in religions, that young boys, moving into these spaces with men who have taken vows of celibacy and molestation and issues occurring?
No hay problema.
Yeah, he said, no problem, I'll answer.
Y eso sucede todo, ¿no? Eso lamentablemente, eso
He
calado.
said, unfortunately, this happens all over the world in many different contexts.
Todo, ¿no? Pero por lo menos su linaje hasta ahora realmente no tuvieron problema eso.
In our specific lineage, our very particular lineage to us, we haven't had such a big problem with these kind of things.
Realmente no tiene mucho problema grande, ¿no?
Yeah, like Drikung Kagyu, like doesn't have problems, like big problems like this.
Pero dentro de budismo tibetano sí algo.
But in Tibetan Buddhism, yes, you hear about those things.
Varios yo también escuchado, ¿no?
I've heard con niños, simplemente con mujeres, ¿no?
Algunas mujeres también, ¿no? Y puede ser algunos de los niños, puede ser.
Okay. Yeah, you do hear about some of those things in the broader base of Tibetan Buddhism a little bit.
Eso como no juzgamiento, ¿no? Y eso cada uno responsable, ¿verdad?
Yeah, he said it's not something that I can judge because it's something that each person needs to take their responsibility for.
Por eso yo a veces no entiendo personas realmente que practican la espiritualidad, ¿no?
It's very hard for me to understand how someone could consider themselves practicing spirituality.
Porque su palabra es muy bonito realmente, ¿no? Como Buda, puede
beautiful
ser, ¿no?
words and can sound like a Buddha.
A veces su acción no matcha con la palabra,
But then
¿no?
sometimes actions don't match with the words.
Eso sucede muchos,
And
¿no?
unfortunately that happens.
Incluso algunos grandes maestros.
And sometimes you hear of great masters doing this.
Ese sucediendo mucho, ¿no?
Mm-hmm.
Entonces, y por eso su santidad Dalai Lama siempre dijo, ¿no?
That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says.
Él dijo, normalmente, claro, nosotros tenemos problemas normal, no social, ¿no? Como esas situaciones.
We've got normal problems already in society.
Supongamos toda la religión o comunidad espiritual, supongamos apoyar eso, ¿cierto?
It's supposedly a spiritual tradition should be helping to solve these problems.
Porque ellos agregan eso a
but
veces, ¿no?
not adding to the problem.
No, eso ya digo muy triste esa realidad,
He
¿no?
said, that makes me so sad.
No debe ser eso.
It should not be like that.
Si no apoya a otro para salirse de ese proceso, por lo menos no hacer eso con mala conducta, ¿no?
Like, if you can't help, at the very least, don't add to it. Don't do any harm.
Por eso Dharma de Buda muy como la base o la moral discipline.
That's why actually in the Buddha Dharma, like the very basis starts with moral discipline.
Entonces como el fundador del linaje digo, ¿no? Como la disciplina es una joya.
So the founder of our lineage said that like discipline is like a jewel.
Una joya y tú no necesitas ornamentos externos como
You don't
colgar,
need
¿no?
to put on a whole bunch of
Tú
jewelry on the
ponga la
outside.
moralidad tu vida.
Put morality onto your
Es
life.
mejor belleza existe
And
tu
it is
vida,
the most beauty that you could do in life.
¿no? por solo puede ver, por ejemplo, y el Buda normalmente no tiene muchos ornamentos,
For
¿no?
example, like the Buddha's image, you don't see a lot of jewelry on him.
Y él todo saca su ornamento de como rey,
He
¿no?
took all his external jewelry. He was in a kingdom. He took all that jewelry off.
Después él no hay nada, como no.
And then he has nothing on.
Todo mundo, belleza él,
But
¿no?
he's
Belleza.
so beautiful
Porque tiene belleza interior, ¿no?
because of the inside.
Ya, disciplina de fundamentos, realidad,
Discipline
¿no?
is
Para todo, ¿no?
fundamental, really.
Eso yo, pequeño comentario,
So
¿no?
that's just
¿no?
a little commentary.
I love it. Yeah, thank you. I'm really appreciative that you shared that with us. It, really allows a person to understand that even great wise ones can succumb or fall to the human desire or human ego if we're not keeping ourselves in check and in alignment with integrity. That, no matter how high you go in terms of enlightenment, that you must maintain awareness, you must maintain being in the moment in alignment with integrity, because no matter how high you go, you can always slip down.
Ya, realidad dicho, porque mientras más cerca de luz, oscuro, más como la llama sombra grande.
There's
Dice, ¿no?
there's also a saying that the higher you the closer you get to the light, the wider the kind of
Sombra.
shadow is as
Más
well.
grande, ¿no? Entonces, el budismo sistema tiene como normalmente como la llama de bumismo, como nivel de conciencia.
In Tibetan Buddhism, we have a thing called the 10 bhumis, which are like the levels of consciousness, like as you go along the path.
Entonces, hasta llegar a D,
Until you get to the 10th bhumi,
y todavía tiene una obscuración muy sutil,
there's still a very subtle obscuration in the mind.
como muy pequeño mancha, ¿no?
And it's a very like subtle stain.
Pero muy difícil ese como la caerse ilusión, muy
It's
difícil, ¿no?
difficult to fall into illusion,
Pero posibilidad,
but it's possible
porque todavía tiene su muy sutil, ¿no?
because it's still very subtle.
Entonces, ahora, por ejemplo, puede ser algún maestro todavía ni llegado un boom, supongamos, ¿no?
So,
Alguno, ¿no?
like, many maestros these days that are considered maestros or masters haven't even achieved the first bhumi.
¿No? Entonces, un nivel de conciencia,
And
¿no?
so we're talking about even the first level of
Porque
consciousness.
un nivel de conciencia significa que tú comprender bien como la parte vacuidad, ¿no? Como nosotros llamamos conciencia universal, ¿no?
Yeah, so like the first bhumi, you have to have had a direct experience of non-dual like wisdom and it's stabilized, so
Como es conciencia
it's like
universal que
connecting
hablamos, ¿no?
into that universal consciousness we were speaking about.
Vivir con eso,
And
entender
to
con
be able
eso,
to
¿no?
live with that.
Entonces, ese poco sería existe,
And
¿no?
very few beings have
Si
this.
no tiene eso, todavía, todo que habla bonito es todo en teórica.
And so until you have that, all of this is beautiful theory.
Entonces, teórica nunca puede, claro, no garantiza.
And
no
so
garantiza.
theory doesn't guarantee that you won't fall.
¿Entendió? Por eso puede posibilidad de caer
So
eso, ¿no?
that's why there's still a possibility to fall.
Claro, nos fumamos normal muy fácil, por suerte, ¿no?
And so like
Humano normal.
is normal human,
Por
ordinary
supuesto.
humans like us, of course we're going to mess up.
No, porque ya.
Yeah, it's not, unless you embody the knowledge. It's merely just intellectual. Like, in order for that wisdom to really be integrated, it must be followed through action, or it's just theory.
Tienes que estar incorporado.
Exactamente. Y eso es muy importante. Incorporado, ya. Esto garantiza, ¿cierto? Tú tienes una
When it's
dignidad, no se compensa, ¿no?
When it's embodied, then you've got confidence and dignity. You can just show it.
Yo mismo pensando eso, a mí, ¿no? Yo mismo sentía eso, ¿no?
I myself felt that.
Cuando yo entré de retiro, yo tengo mucho teórica, ¿no?
Before retreat, I had a lot of theory.
Pero he escuchado muchas palabras
I
teóricas,
heard all this beautiful theory,
pero todavía duda,
but there was still kind of doubt.
no estable, no
It's
estable,
not stable yet
porque no por ver.
because I never tasted it.
Después del retiro,
And then after retreat,
me sentía como la grounded,
I
como
felt
está,
like
¿no?
it was very grounded in my being.
Como sensación de eso, no, algo no puede cambiar,
It
¿no?
can't
Pasa,
change. It's
¿no?
there.
Yo saboreé eso,
Like
¿no?
I tasted it.
Algo sensación de eso. Eso es muy diferente de teoría y práctica.
So it's very different. There's a lot of difference between theory and practice.
Yeah, I see this often in my practice. So many of my clients are plant medicine facilitators or plant medicine consumers. And they are going there to learn their shadows or really, delve deep into their own psyche. And the work that we do together is very much about integrating the lesson that they extracted from the plant medicine experience. So whether it's ayahuasca or, psilocybin, and until they've embodied it, so that lesson has to be followed through with action. And the universe will bring numerous scenarios to test you, to see if this information is now a part of your character, that it's embodied, that it's something that you won't waver from. And if you believe yourself to have become grounded in this information, the universe will give you opportunities to prove that you have or to waver.
Exactamente. Just yo cuando fui a Chile pasó eso, lo mismo, ¿no?
He said that same thing happened to me when I went from retreat and then went straight to Santiago, Chile.
Porque yo retiro sensación de cómo ser iluminada. ¿Cierto?
Like when I was in retreat, I was like, I feel almost enlightened.
Porque no tengo apego.
I don't
no
feel like I have
rabia,
attachment. There's no anger.
No ego. Porque no hay objeto condition externo,
because there
¿no?
was no external conditions.
Solo mi cuarto, ¿sí?
It's just me in my room.
Muy paz.
Very peaceful.
Y eso uno era poco trampa, ¿cierto?
And that was a little bit of a trap in itself.
Y yo fui eso ya forward, ¿no?
And then I went over to Chile.
¿Cómo está tu retiro?
How did your retreat go?
Bien,
All of the demons came out.
I'd like to ask you what your thoughts are on plant medicine.
Tipo de cosa.
Ya. Entonces, mi personalmente es maravilloso. Depende de los usos.
He said, I think it can be marvelous, but I think it depends on the use.
¿No? Realmente, porque ese es muy antiguo tradición, ¿cierto?
These are ancestral traditions, these medicines.
Grande, muchos maestros realizados, seguramente indígenas, people,
And like indigenous wisdom keepers that were also quite realized used this medicine. They were tools.
Entonces, a veces hoy día, nuestro mundo moderno, gente como medio curioso o un poco para hacer algo intención no tan correcto, ¿cierto?
I think that a lot of times people might not be entering these for the right intention. Maybe they're just a little curious, or maybe they want some sort of kind of sensual pleasure from it.
Entonces, no tiene sentido eso, ¿verdad?
And that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Si uno realmente serio, uno tiene el lineaje correcto, uno maestro ya tiene poco experiencia, tomen de eso uso con la práctica. Yo quiero que mucho positivo gente puede cambiar.
I think that if it's used within its cultural context, where it actually comes from a lineage and actually comes from a teacher that has a lot of experience and wisdom, then I think that this can become a very good tool for the practice.
Muchos mis amigos tengo ahora, ellos son de tomando medicina cambio budista después.
Actually, I have a lot of friends that they first took the medicine and then turned Buddhist.
No, después no quiere más comer carne, por ejemplo.
And they decided to stop eating meat
y todo naturaliza.
And they wanted more nature.
Realmente quiere como la propósito de vida.
And they really
¿no?
wanted like this higher purpose
Algo
in
realmente
life.
Cambia muy como radical.
So I see like people have some radical changes from these experiences.
Entonces, lindo mi personalmente
so
eso, ¿no?
those kind of things are beautiful.
Pero budismo normalmente habla cualquiera pierde la conciencia no permite tomar normalmente.
But really,
¿no?
to be honest, in Buddhism, we say anything that has you lose your consciousness, lose awareness, is considered something not so good.
Es incluso nuestras aflicciones,
including
por ejemplo, ¿no?
getting
Peor.
drunk on our own afflictions.
Peor viene, ¿no?
It's the worst poison.
Cuando un momento tomamos rabia, por ejemplo,
when we take anger, for example,
pierde totalmente conciencia,
we
¿no?
lose our consciousness in anger.
Entonces, eso puede generar los sufrimientos.
And it can generate suffering.
Entonces, eso no permitido,
So
cualquiera sea, ¿no?
that's considered like
Tóxicos.
any type of substance where we will lose our awareness, that's considered not so good.
I understand. So from what I hear, it sounds like you're not going to be taking ayahuasca anytime soon.
Yo curioso. Oh, mi intención curioso, no sé.
He said, I'm curious.
But,
He said, maybe it's not the best intention. I'm curious about it, to be honest.
siento uno de los maestros llamados Zongsar 15, ¿no?
He actually said one of the Tibetan masters called Zongzar Khyentse.
Y él compartió y dijo, toma poco.
He said he tried it before.
¿No? Y,
Oh man, that's a great episode.
y, claro, ellos realmente ellos utilizar bien, ¿cierto?
He said, but yeah, he like sat with it in a good way.
Yo no. Seguramente algo tuve experiencia
So
buena.
I'm sure there was I'm sure he had an experience from that.
Yeah, I can identify with that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So regarding your 4-year solo retreat in the mountains of India, I believe that's where you train deeply in the fivefold path of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa. I'm very curious what a solo retreat is. Here we hear a lot of silent retreats of Vipassana, but I'm not quite sure what a solo retreat is.
Ya, es un retiro realmente maravilloso para nosotros, Purva de los lamas.
It's
¿Cómo se llama Purva, no? Universidad, ¿no?
Okay.
O final pasa, ¿no?
like the final exam.
Yeah, ¿no?
He's saying that really solitary retreat is so wonderful, and it's kind of like for us almost like a final exam after you go to Lama University.
Eso es muy necesario, en realidad, ¿no?
And it's really necessary.
Porque tú compraste todo, tú estudiaste toda la vida, ¿cierto?
So
Un par de
you
vida, ¿no?
studied your whole life.
Todo uno teórica, uno sabe del fruto, yo
You've
le
got
llamo.
this like raw ingredients of wisdom.
Y ese tiene que cocinar,
Now
¿no?
you need to cook that.
Si no cocina, ese no tiene beneficioso, no tiene rico.
If you don't cook it, then how beneficial or delicious
Entonces,
can it be?
ese nosotros tenemos sistema como para cocinar un retiro solitario,
So
¿no?
we have this system of going into this solitary retreat to like cook the wisdom.
En guiado unos libros sagrados.
And we have this sacred book that is the sacred text that is kind of the guide.
Entonces, resumido, como la tela, Quintupole Mahamudra, se yoga Naropa, y con un maestro iluminado se puse, ¿no?
So
Como
it's like basically taking all the wisdom of the Fivefold Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa and cooking it down to its essence and creating a step-by-step guide. And it was written by an enlightened master.
Entonces, eso retiro como la solitaria, una cabaña más o menos 2 metros, 2 metros por 2 metros, ¿cómo llama? 3 metros, ¿cierto? Mira ahí.
Okay.
Ya, ese tamaño.
So maybe, I was in a house that was maybe 3 meters by 3 meters, in a little cabin.
Entonces, hay como la cantado afuera.
And they lock it from the outside.
Antiguamente, hacen en la cueva.
Normally in the olden days, they actually did this in a cave.
Incluso no tienen la, ¿cómo se llama? Puertas.
And they would have no door. They would actually close the cave up with mud.
Solo ventana chiquitito,
Tiny little window
donde pasa las comidas.
where they would pass the food.
Y baño todo dentro.
There's a bathroom
Baño
inside,
seco, ¿no?
like a dry bathroom.
Seco, y totalmente retirado,
That
¿no?
was in the cave though, right?
Ese que,
That
¿no?
was the cave version.
Pero mío no tuve eso porque poco más moderno,
Yeah,
¿no?
so mine was a little bit more modern.
Y tuve una cabaña chiquitita.
So I had like a small cabin.
Y yo cuando vendí acá 4 años, ¿no?
So I was there at 24 years old.
Todavía poco joven,
I'm
supongamos.
still a little bit young, huh?
Y yo poco, mucho miedo.
I actually was
Mucho
very
miedo.
afraid.
Nunca tuve.
I'd never been like that
Pero
alone.
mi vida, uno de las tengo mucho miedo. En general.
One of the afflictions that I had the most of was fear.
Miedo de solos,
I
¿no?
was fear of being alone.
Y como la momento tuve ese retiro,
And so, I went into retreat.
y ese retiro pasa 3 veces al año, ¿no? Como
So
3
it ha-
veces,
it-
cada 3 veces.
a new
año,
cohort.
cada-
New cohort would go in every 3 years.
Y ya fui. Y
And so I went into the opportunity that came about.
entonces primero como interna más para la práctica como ejercicio, mantra, rezo, purificaciones.
The first practices that we do are more physical. They're like mantras and they're like prostrations. They're things that generate purification.
Physical,
Physical purification
mental,
as well as a mental purification
verbal.
and a verbal purification.
entonces ahí tiene una técnica, métodos.
So there's
¿no?
techniques and methods for
Y
purification.
maestro viene a tu casa.
And the teacher comes to your hut
Una vez a la mes, 2 veces, depende de su tarea.
once a year.
No, mes.
Sorry, excuse me. Oh, yeah. Once every month they would come into,
O 12 meses.
or sometimes 2 or sometimes once a month.
Entonces él da tarea,
And they give you homework
tú no permites visitar a nadie.
and you can't visit with anybody.
cada semana, domingo, tiene una persona compra comida.
And every Sunday, then someone would bring like groceries.
Y diga su puerta,
And they leave it at your door.
y él va.
And
¿no?
then they go.
Una vez yo tuve experiencia, mi comida llevo monos, ahí tiene
Once
monos.
I had this experience one time, all the monkeys actually took my food.
Yo meditando, ¿no?
I was meditating.
Y él tocó puerta,
And
señor,
he,
¿no?
he knocked on the door.
Y yo poco atraso.
And I was like a little late to answer or to get it, to pick up the
Y él
items.
fue
Of
y
course, he left already.
atraso y mono viene en yo
And the monkeys came before me.
y llevaron todo
They
comida.
took all my food.
Yo me sentí mucho rabia,
And I
¿no?
was so angry
Porque mucho apego con comida.
because I had so much attachment to the food.
El momento da cuenta de mindfulness.
And I had a moment of mindfulness.
Oh, esto es retiro, ¿no?
I realized I'm in retreat.
Por vos el retiro no para apego ni rabia.
The purpose of retreat is not to have anger or attachment.
Oh, después yo la tuve mindful como regresa a mi centro
And so the mindfulness helped me to return to my
y sentí
center.
una compasión para los monos
And then I felt compassion for the
y
monkeys.
desapego para comida.
And I like detached from the food.
Y yo por lo menos tenía una comida poquito,
At
no,
least
no
I
va a morir.
had a tiny bit of food. I wasn't going to die.
Entonces, eso tuve una experiencia como fui buena, primero,
So
¿no? Fui
that-
muy forward, ¿no?
That was a good experience, and it was maybe like the first test, you will, like you were talking about those tests that
Yeah.
the universe.
Más o menos un año muy difícil.
The first year was hard,
Muy difícil.
very
De
difficult.
Casa chiquitito, quiero salir, no puede salir.
It was a tiny little house. I wanted to leave.
Quiere hablar.
I wanted
¿no?
to speak
¿Dónde
to
hablar?
someone, no one to speak to.
Lleno de mucha emoción, manifiesta.
Lots of emotions would manifest.
Porque pensando, ¿por qué perder el tiempo? ¿Por qué
And I was
hacerlo?
thinking,
¿no?
well, I'm losing my
¿Por
time.
qué venir,
Why
no?
what am I doing here?
No sentía ninguna, ¿cómo se llama? Su
Fruto.
beneficio,
I
frutos,
couldn't
¿no?
experience the fruits of my meditations or like the benefits of
Y
it.
después yo pensando como si fuera alga chopa, ¿cierto? Yo siempre aplico, ¿no?
And then, and then, wait, what is that called in English?
Artichoke.
Artichoke. I felt like an artichoke.
Porque alga chopa, primero tú no tienes mucho trabajo, no hay comida.
At the beginning of an artichoke, it's so much work and there's hardly any food.
Poco a poco conectan el centro.
Little by little, the closer you get to the center.
Es realmente rico, ¿no?
Oh, it's delicious.
Eso como fue, yo como si fuera alga comiendo alga
And
chopa,
so I
¿no?
kind of felt like an artichoke.
Después, al final de meditación, realmente, final de
Then
meditación,
at the end of the meditation,
y ni ganas de salir,
at the end of the 4 years, like I didn't even want to leave.
pero mismo condition
I
en la
was
casa, todo,
same
¿no?
conditions, nothing
Oh,
changed.
muy rico,
It
muy
was so
rico, ¿no?
delightful.
Y después mi maestro dijo, ahora tiene que salir compartir,
Then my
¿no?
teacher said, it's time for you to go and to go share.
Para compartir como experiencia,
It
¿no?
go share your experience now.
Y entonces fue eso realmente para mí un grande, ¿cómo se llama? Como sanador puede ser, un liberador, ese retiro solitario,
This
¿no?
was really such a big healing experience and experience of freedom for me. Like that retreat, it was so
Por-
potent.
Claro, eso permite compartir tú misma
It
directamente, ¿no?
allows you to share with yourself directly.
Porque nosotros siempre, uno maestro digo, nosotros humanos muy poco mañosos, ¿no? No sabe vivir solo, no sabe vivir con los kindis, ¿no?
We as humans are so challenging. Like we don't know how to live by ourselves and we don't know how to live with people.
No, porque cuando solo vive aburrido, ¿no?
When you're
Como,
by
¿no?
yourself, you're so bored.
O nace televisión,
Oh,
o
I
nace
need
cell
TV
phone,
or
o
my cell
game.
phone or a game.
Si no tiene, aburrido.
If we don't have it, we're bored.
Y con la candy, no buenas relaciones.
And then when we're with people, we don't have a good relationship.
No sabe vivir uno lado.
We don't know how to live in general.
Y entonces, por eso yo, yo realmente disfruté eso.
So
¿no?
I
Disfruté,
really enjoyed
¿no?
this.
Y como guiado de mi maestro,
And I
¿no?
was guided by my master.
Un maestro viene cada mes, cada 2 meses, ¿no?
The
Realmente, ¿no?
teacher comes every month or every 2
Basado en
months.
unos libros, ¿no?
And based on that book, that text,
Entonces, él dando enseñanza solo una parte, una hoja.
he
Una
just
hoja.
gives you one page to look at and just gives you a deep teaching on that one
No
page.
permite mirar otro.
And you're not allowed to look at the rest of the book.
Eso pasa paso a paso, ¿no?
Just step by step.
Realmente muy especial para la
It's
¿no?
actually very special.
Eso.
Oh, wow. You know, just hearing that hearing that it was 4 years, I was like quite shocked and was like, oh God, could I do that? And, by the end of your conversation, I really feel the desire that I would love that for at least a year. Like I would love 1 year of that, you know, that just
Absolutely.
I
Come
feel
to
called to that.
Yeah.
Come to Dewachen. That's what Costa Rica,
Yeah.
that's what we're building in Costa Rica,
Yeah,
to
we
give
met
people
this
those
foundation.
opportunities.
Yeah, yo primero pensaba, muy alto, ¿no? Mi pensamiento,
I
¿no?
also thought, God, that's so much.
Impossible.
Impossible,
¿no?
impossible.
No, realmente rápido, muy
But
rápido.
it actually started to go by so quickly.
Porque tiene una agenda diariamente.
Because you actually have an agenda, you have a daily schedule.
Yo durmo máximo 3 horas.
I
máximo.
actually only slept like 3 hours a day.
Realmente mucha energía.
I had so much energy.
Y entonces, porque uno tiene práctica.
Because
muy
you
práctica.
have all these
Entonces,
practices.
tú no sientes cansado.
Then you start to not feel tired.
Pero ahora es diferente cuando viviendo ciudad. Poco tú no duermes falta de 2 horas y mucho cansado, ¿no?
Yeah, now, like, when you live in the cities, like, if you've been lacking 2 hours of the normal sleep, then you're so tired.
Y como energía también,
Because
¿no?
our energy.
Pero cuando visión pura, pensamiento
But
puro,
when
¿no?
you're in retreat and your view is pure and your thoughts are pure,
Bendición de gurús, ¿no?
and you've got the blessings of your teacher,
Realmente muy motivado.
it's very, it makes you much more motivated.
Yeah, I've been in isolation for a week, and I know that I feel far more energized because I'm producing energy from inward out. And then when I am immersed in groups of people, I feel incredibly drained because I feel like my energy is being pulled, and, you know, not just pulled by all these different entities, but I'm also feeling their energy, and I'm confused. What is my energy versus their energy? Is that their emotion or my emotion? And it just becomes this like feeling like you're in a washer machine of chaos. After your retreat, they sent you to South of America, and I'm wondering what that experience was like, and, you know, if you could reflect on bringing Buddhism to that particular culture.
Yeah. Eso uno, segundo retiro fue la,
That
¿no?
was my second
Segundo
retreat.
retiro. ¿No? Ten agradable.
Also, my first year was not very pleasurable.
Porque tú sabes, totalmente diferente cultura, idioma.
Totally different culture, language.
Entonces, y mi maestro digo, yo ni sabe dónde va aquí de Chile,
I
¿no?
honestly didn't even know where Chile was on a map. I had no clue.
No tengo tecnología, contacto con tecnología a mi mano hasta 2009.
Until 2009, I had never even used technology,
Ni celular, nada,
like
¿no?
a cell phone or anything.
Y después ya digo ir a Chile porque maestro digo al compartir, porque él tiene un centro budista allá.
So my teacher said, I'd like you to go to Chile because I have a center there.
Y él no puede viajar más.
And he
como,
couldn't
¿no?
travel
Vaya.
anymore.
Entonces yo digo, sí, podemos, como no. ¿Y por
And
qué
I
no?
said, okay.
Okay. Y fui allá y ninguno no habla tibetano, traducción.
And
no
I
hay
went there
traducción.
and no one spoke Tibetan. They didn't offer a translator.
Y comida muy extraño.
The
¿no?
food was very
Ya.
weird.
Y ahí como aceptarlos, adaptar, ¿no?
But I learned to have to adapt.
Y ahí poco a poco ya aprendí español. ¿no?
Little by little, I learned Spanish.
Y yo llevé diccionario tibetano y inglés.
I
por
had a
caso, ¿no?
dictionary from Tibetan to English.
English y
And then I
español.
had another dictionary from English to Spanish
Y para por lo menos comunicar para básicos.
to learn how to communicate for the very basic things.
Y yo no puedo enseñar todo lo
I
eso. ¿no?
couldn't teach or anything.
Y solo comento una casa de una señora mayor.
I was just like eating at this elder woman's house.
Y señora poco cansado, ¿no? Yo comento mucho y mucho gusto, ¿no? No hay problema con el estómago.
And then one day the woman was a little tired of housing me. Like there's this monk there that eats all the time. There was nothing wrong with his belly. I couldn't speak, but there was nothing wrong with my tummy.
Y ella dijo, ahora tiene que hacer algo realmente, ¿no?
And so then she
Y
kind of
jubilado.
communicated to me, you need to do something now, because she's like a retired woman.
Ya, y yo digo, puede hacer algo, inventar,
And I
¿no?
said, okay, I'll figure out something to be able to
Yeah.
collaborate, to contribute to the
Algo,
household.
¿no? Y yo pensé, yo sabía pintar,
And
mandala,
I was like, oh, I know how to paint.
¿no? Y yo fui marcado
So we went to like the market,
y compré varios como la cuadernos.
and he got
cuadras,
like
¿no?
a lot of canvases,
Y yo pinté mucho mandalas.
and he painted a lot of mandalas.
Casa del Señor lleno de mandalas
The
tibetanos, ¿no?
woman's house was like full of Tibetan
Y
mandalas.
personas vienen, visita,
And
gente
then
lleva,
people would come and visit her, and then they would like donate and take the mandala.
Eso fue un poquito ingreso para comenzar, ¿no?
And it was like a great way to start getting a little income for her for the house.
Porque yo no puedo hacer actividad, no habla.
I couldn't speak to anyone, so I couldn't do any teachings.
Es una experiencia
So
nueva,
that
¿no?
was like a first experience.
Después realmente un momento muy difícil Chile, ¿no? Yo quiero salir de Chile.
And
Tuve
then there
algún
was a
momento.
time when I was like, it was way too challenging for me in Chile, and I was trying to leave.
Y no me dio la visa a
But
Estados
they
Unidos.
wouldn't give me the visa to the U.S.
Entonces, ahí tiene que quedar de nuevo.
And I had to stay.
Y otro, mi maestro, digo, nosotros tenemos una misión muy importante en Latinoamérica, poco lama vive, tú tienes que acá forzar.
And then my teacher, you know, said to me, please, we have a really important mission in Latin America, and I really think it's important that you stay.
No, poco acceso como
There's
budismo.
very
muy poco.
little access of the Dharma in South America.
Casi no hay lama allá, no
There's
vive eso,
basically no lamas
¿no? Ni
over here.
tibetano, nadie,
Tibetans don't live over here. There's hardly any lamas.
¿no? Yo, mi mente cambió eso, ¿no?
So then I changed my mind.
No importa yo feliz, no feliz,
It
¿no?
doesn't matter if I'm happy or
Yo
not.
realmente algo beneficio a ese
What
país.
matters is I should benefit these people, this
Eso un
country.
propósito, yo vale la pena nacido ese
That
mundo,
would
¿no?
make it very valuable for me to have been born in this world.
Y yo forcé como la estudia poco español con la gente.
So I put more effort towards studying Spanish.
Y después de los 2 años abrió realmente muy, ¿cómo se llama?
And then after 2 years, really things started to blossom.
Y yo viajé como todos latinos casi,
And
¿no?
so I was traveling all around Latin America.
Y yo muy amigos, tengo mucho lleno de amigos.
And so
¿no?
then I have so many friends all over Latin America now.
Entonces ahí fue maravilloso.
And it really
Maravilloso.
it's marvelous.
Una experiencia, primero siempre comienzo duro,
Of
¿cierto? En la
course,
vida
the beginning's always not so easy.
para aprender, ¿no?
Yeah. Anytime there's adversity or change, the beginning is always not so easy.
Yeah.
So I know that from there you decided that you wanted to open your own retreat, and that's what brought you to Costa Rica. So I'm very curious about the retreat in Costa Rica, and then why Costa Rica? I know that Costa Rica is a peace country and a very green country that's in support of the environment. And I'm wondering if that's what lured you there, and what other beautiful characteristics and attributes that the country has for you.
Sí,
Entiendo,
porque,
yo entiendo
okay,
todo.
perfecto.
Yo entiendo. I understand English, ¿no?
Okay.
Y yo tengo varias razones, ¿no?
There's many reasons why I chose Costa Rica.
Primero, yo tengo muchos sueños, mucho tiempo como centro de retiro solitario,
So
¿no?
I always had this dream to have a solitary retreat sanctuary.
Yo tuve varios como Brasil, Colombia, nunca sentía como una sensación.
And there was many options for me in Brazil and Chile.
Brasil, Chile, Colombia, Peru,
Brazil,
¿no?
Chile, Colombia. There's many options that people gave me, but I really never felt like it was the right place.
¿No? Y después yo tampoco no estaba buscando, sufriendo.
And
no
I also
buscando,
wasn't
no
just
buscando.
actively looking like
Solo
for
fluye,
a place. I
me
was
gusta
just
fluye.
flowing.
Y después de pandemia, durante la pandemia, ¿no?
And then-
2020, ¿cierto?
And then during the pandemic, during 2020,
Y Carolina, nosotros ya tenemos una conexión.
so like Lama got reconnected with Caroline, myself, during the pandemic.
Nosotros conocimos antes de pandemia 5 años atrás, ¿no?
We had
Más o
known
menos.
each other maybe like 4 or 5 years before the pandemic.
No, porque yo tuve uno en ¿cómo se llama? Intercultura en budista. Y ella hasta traducción de la maestro quechua.
So me and Lama met in Peru like 4 years before the pandemic at an intercultural gathering. And Lama was representing like the Tibetan Buddhism, and there was many different indigenous leaders there. And I was a translator for a Quechua leader from the Karo Nation. And so we had met at that gathering.
Y algo cambió nuestros contactos. Algo
And we
con
just
¿no?
like casually exchanged contacts.
Ya. Y después, como durante la pandemia,
And then many years later, during the pandemic,
y ella saliendo de Perú, ¿no? Tú saliendo de Perú más o menos, ¿no?
casi no todavía.
Ya, pero estuve viajando a Estados Unidos, fondo, ¿no?
Okay, yeah,
Sí,
she left Peru during the pandemic to go like visit her family in the U.S.
Sí, ¿no? Y después ella, su amiga, invitó a Costa Rica.
And a friend was invited me to Costa Rica.
Ella preguntó a esta amiga puede traer la lama.
And then I asked, could I bring the Lama? Just one little detail he forgot was that during the pandemic, there was like, the head of his lineage was having his 80th birthday.
Sí,
Was having his birthday. And so that's how we actually reconnected. Lama wrote to me after like 4 years and said, can I get a video with your indigenous elder to say happy birthday to our lineage leader? So we just got reconnected. And from there was an invitation for me to go to Costa Rica as well during the pandemic.
Exactamente, eso fue, ¿no? Y Costa Rica llegué a San José.
And we arrived in San Jose, Costa Rica.
3 semanas
maybe
quedamos.
3 weeks there.
No gustó nada.
And I did not like it.
Como en una capital, ¿no?
I was like, I was just in a capital city in Latin America.
Yo pensé, ese no es Costa Rica.
I was like,
¿no?
this isn't Costa Rica.
Ya, yo vengo solo las vacaciones, ¿no?
So I just came for like a short trip.
No tengo ningún proyecto, no tengo nada,
I didn't
¿no?
have any like teachings or anything. I was just going to come on a short trip.
Nos conversamos sobre como general mundo, ¿no?
And we were talking a lot about
Como
these
mejor.
things going on in the world.
Y yo tengo mucho gusto al centro de retiro, templo, y ella también quiere eso mismo.
And I told her that I'd like to make this sanctuary and this temple. And she was saying, oh, I also have the same dream.
Entonces, saliendo de esa conversación,
And so from that conversation,
alguna amiga de nosotros invitaron a otro lado de Costa Rica.
and then some friends invited us to a different part of Costa Rica.
Y gustó mucho
And
realmente,
I
¿no?
really liked it.
Como mucho naturaleza, agua
There's so
cascada,
much nature and like
fruta,
waterfalls
todo
and
lado.
fruits dripping everywhere.
Wow. Después como la Uber y conversando, y él dijo Costa Rica no tiene militar, uno paz.
And then the Uber driver told me that there's no military in Costa Rica, so just so many things.
¿no? Entonces todo me impactó, como, ¿no?
So all of that really touched
wow,
me.
Qué rico es, ¿no?
I'm like, wow, how beautiful.
Pero todavía no claridad voy a hacer centro acá,
And
¿no?
I wasn't still clear I was going to make a center.
Y después nosotros amiga quería una comunidad budista esa parte,
And
¿no?
then we had a friend that wanted a Buddhist community here.
Y yo le digo, tal vez puede encontrar unos terrenos.
And so he said, if you can, then find a land.
Y nosotros salimos de Costa Rica,
And we actually left Costa Rica continuing the teachings.
¿no? Y tampoco no tengo expectativa de tener acá centro.
And I had no expectation to have the center here
Y
still.
fue México.
We were in Mexico
Enseñando.
doing teachings.
Después de 3 meses,
And after 3 months,
otro amiga llamó a
a
nosotros.
friend called us.
Tiene una terreno como disponible.
I found the land.
Y ese terreno vendió 10 años.
It hasn't
¿no?
been sold for 10 years.
Y ella conectó en la dueño
And so she connected us to the owner
y en la Zoom.
on Zoom.
Y nosotros vemos algunas fotos.
And we saw photos of the land.
99% ya tomando decisión.
And we were 99% sure that's the land.
Y esa tierra de nosotros como la budista.
It was
¿no?
like so beautiful.
No nace de ración.
It
No
just
hay
felt
ración,
like
¿no?
there was no logic. It just felt like the
Solo
right thing.
confianza,
Just
¿no?
trust.
Señora llorando.
And the woman on the Zoom call was crying.
Y está a propósito mi tierra,
She
digo,
like,
¿no?
finally there's some purpose or meaning to this
Porque
land.
ella no quiere esa
Because she
tierra.
had really like had aversion to the land.
Ella recibió unos deudas, algo
She
deudas.
received it from like a bad deal or something, like someone gave it to her like in debt.
Entonces digo, nosotros, ya, Lama y Caro, nosotros vamos a comprar esa tierra.
And Lama said, all right, I want to get this land.
Ya, ¿cómo? No sé, pero
I don't know
vamos.
how, I don't have the money, but I'm going to get this land.
Y entonces, ese agosto, ¿ya?
So that was in August.
Y fue a Nepal.
And we continued on our journeys in Europe and then went to Nepal.
Pero enero tenía comprometido con la señora.
But we had a commitment to buy it by January.
Ya, pero no tengo dinero.
But I don't have money.
No, solo eso, ¿verdad? Después de Carolina habló algunas sangas muy especiales, ¿no?
Yeah, and so then Carolina spoke to some of, we continued on our teachings and we just let the people know as we did teachings about it.
Ya, y habló sobre de la proyecto Lama hace eso, ¿no? La tiene que comprar terrenos,
And
¿no?
then, yeah, told people about the project.
Y dos amigos al final de la
And the
años.
very last day of the year, on December 31st, very last day, 2 people matched each other and got the land for us.
Compró, dio apoyo, ¿no? Un milagro, ¿no?
It was like a miracle.
Y ahí tengo la dinero
And so then I had the money,
y regresé enero.
and then I returned in January,
Como muy feliz,
like
¿no?
so happy.
Ya, Señor esperando.
And she was waiting for us.
Ya. Eso uno confiesa realmente,
It
¿no?
was really came through
No.
trust.
Y fue y casa de vecino de nosotros terreno esperando.
And then when we came to the land to visit the first time, there was a neighbor here, and he said, "I've been waiting for you."
Ya. Yo sabía tú viene haga ese un proyecto de luz.
He said, "I've known for years that there was a teacher coming, and that there's going to be a community of light here."
Para él practica la medicina como
He
tu
actually
visión.
saw this in his plant medicine visions, that
No.
the community of light was going to be coming here. And this is a local Costa Rican.
Oh my
Entonces,
God, I'm getting goosebumps.
ya, y digo, él compró, él tiene un cabaña chiquitito, recién construyeron,
And
¿no?
he built the cabin because he said, "I know the teacher's coming. I have to build the cabin."
Y él dijo, tú lama vive acá, Jevi.
He gave Lama the key and said, "Stay here as long as you
quiere.
need." I knew it.
Y el servicio como la, ¿no?
And
Como montaña.
he was bringing us up and down the mountain, like so happy that this was a real vision.
Y conversando todo.
He was just telling us about all his visions he has. Like, I knew this was true.
Muy emocionado,
He was
¿no?
so happy.
Y de esa noche nosotros dormimos arriba
And then that night we kind of slept in that home
y mirando tierra.
and we saw the land.
Y primero tuvimos un poquito, como llama, duda,
And there was
digamos, ¿no?
still a little doubt. We weren't quite sure if it was the land,
Yeah. Pero comprometido con la señora.
but we were committed.
Ok, entonces vamos a dormir, ya dormir.
And so, all right, we're going to at least try it for a night. I'm going to stay here.
Ahí tuve unos sueños muy
And
poderosos.
I had a very powerful dream.
Uno más importante, mi grande maestro,
So my
Guru.
two most important gurus,
en la presente
they were here in front of me.
en la mesa.
And we were all sitting at a table.
Y otro, aparece una mujer pidiendo uno la rosario.
And
Mala
this
se llama.
woman came from the
Pidiendo.
woods and she asked for a mala, like one of the a mala or rosary.
Ya, mala de las sándalos.
And she
Quiero,
asked
mala
specifically for sandalwood mala,
como request, ¿no?
requesting it.
Entonces yo le digo, eso es muy difícil conseguir.
And I said, that's very challenging to find.
Y ella dijo, quiero.
She said, but that's what I want.
Ok, yo buscando
And
en
so
la
I
sueño,
was looking around
encontró.
and I found one.
Y yo puse frente presencia de mi
And I
maestro.
put it in front of my teachers.
Maestro bendició.
And my masters blessed it.
Bendició.
Both of them blessed
Yo
it.
también bendició.
And then I blessed it.
Y regala esa mujer.
And I gave it to this woman.
Mujer muy feliz.
And she was so happy.
Desapareció.
And she disappeared.
Entonces eso significa, eso puede ser espíritu de Pachamama,
And I
¿no?
really think this was like the Pachamama,
Mujer, uno
like the
representa, ¿no?
spirit of nature.
Está solicitando una enseñanza sin interrupción.
She was requesting the teachings from an uninterrupted lineage.
Porque mala nos representa como la linaje ininterrupto.
Because for us, the mala represents this uninterrupted lineage of teachings,
Como continuidad,
a
¿no?
continuity.
Una enseñanza pura quieren.
It's like pure teachings.
Y otro despierte en la mañana.
And I woke up in the morning.
Ya, esa es tierra.
All right, this
no hay
is the
duda.
land, no doubt.
No hay lógico, ¿no?
There's beyond logic. This is the one.
Y subimos arriba montaña, ¿no?
And we went up the mountain.
Y cerca de nosotros viene uno como la forma de
And
como
as
la
we got
nubia.
to the very top
Amor.
of the land, this heart,
Corazón.
this cloud came out in the shape of a heart.
Eso, viene eso
And
muy
it came
cerca.
right towards our faces.
Wow, eso ya definitivamente listo,
Okay,
¿no?
we were like 100% sure now.
Ya. Y ya, eso es manera nosotros tomamos
So
decisión,
and
¿no?
that's the way we made the decision.
Esto muy facilidad,
It
muy
was
fluido,
so fluid
muy significado.
and very meaningful.
Y muchos mis amigos digo, Lama, ¿por qué vivir muy difícil camino?
My friends always say,
lejos,
why are you living so far away? It's a very
mejor más abajo.
hard path to get there. No one lives there.
Yo
It's
digo,
difficult
no.
to get to. And I'm like, no doubt, this is the one.
Y eso ahí, comentario.
There's
hay
no
comentario.
comments, no comments.
That's an awesome story. I hear so much synchronicity and like almost like universal intelligence in the alignments there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Esa fue una experiencia, ¿no? Esa
So
razón,
that was
¿no?
the experience.
De otro lama viajando mucho, ¿cierto? Mi persona, dice, adicional. Una razón yo viajando mucho, ¿cierto?
And I travel a lot.
Ese es Centroamérica, ¿no?
And this is in the center of the
Es
Americas.
fácil viajar a
It's
dólar.
so easy for everyone to come here. It's in the
Eso-
center.
Es una razón, ¿no?
And that's one of the reasons.
Okay.
So can you tell me a little bit about where the retreat is in its current state and where you see it heading in the next few years, and just kind of where the retreat is at?
First of all, I really feel like I just want to take the computer outside for 1 second and show you the view before
Yes,
it gets
please.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Uno momento.
Okay, tú puedes mostrar.
You can see our tiny little cabin here, but
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
you can't see right now because there's clouds, but when the clouds open up, you can see the whole village below. And so we get to pray over all the people. It's just like, it's gorgeous out here.
Yeah, it looks so lush, beautiful. Yeah. I can hear the crickets.
Lots of fun, my cat. So right now we're still working on building the center.
Ya, nosotros con más o menos San Isidro hacia montaña se llama. San Isidro, es la locación más o menos. San Isidro hacia montaña.
Oh, so like the area that we're in Costa Rica, the closest kind of bigger town is called San Isidro de General, and we're like, 45 minutes like into the mountains from there.
¿Cómo no? Eso en una montaña, no hay, ya, poco lejos de mar. ¿Cierto?
It's like 2 hours from the beach.
Pero visión maravilloso.
But the view is just incredible.
Oh, ya. Y ahora tenemos construcción solo una cabaña chiquitita donde Lama vivo.
So we have 8 hectares right now, and then of those 8 hectares, we only actually have one small cabin that's been built, and that's where Lama is.
Ya. Entonces,
the
original.
other ones we're renting around here.
Claro, original nosotros tenemos tierra y compró solo casi 3 hectáreas, ¿no?
At the beginning, we just had bought around 3 hectares.
Después tu importancia nace de proteger las 3 aguas, en 2 aguas.
And then there became a land became available above us, and it has 3 really important springs. So we did like a campaign in order to protect those springs.
Y adicionamos eso.
And so now we're around 8 hectares.
Por eso demora para construcción.
So our construction has taken longer because we needed to fundraise for the expansion of the land.
Y entonces ahí recién conseguimos uno de los amigos nosotros dio una cabaña para ricar los setos.
And then some friends donated to build a small cabin for Lama.
Y eso yo vivo ahora. Y yo doy como arrendado acá es parte, ¿no?
And then the other team members have cabins that are rented around.
Y entonces ahora trabajando como la master map de filmocultura.
Right now, we're in this really amazing process with our friends from Symbiosis, Itai and Melinda. And we're doing permaculture master mapping with them.
Entonces, quiero hacer manera uno como la no dañarse natural tanto y también más correcto.
So we're designing with nature in mind to ensure that we can really enhance the nature around us and impact nature in a beautiful way. And so again, we're like doing master mapping to make sure everything's considered before we begin to build.
Eso, entonces ese año un proceso de eso, ¿cierto?
So this year we're still in the process
permission,
we need to get permits and designs.
Camino,
we need to get a road, an additional road into the land.
Y todo depende de los fondos.
And all of this is depending on fundraising.
Si fondo está bien, ojalá próximo año ya puede empezar.
If we have the funds by December, what we would like to do is begin building in the dry season in January.
Sí, entonces tiempo de 4 meses tenemos tiempo seco.
There's like 3 or 4 months of the dry season, and we really want to take advantage of that to build.
¿No? Entonces eso pensando próximo por lo menos alguna cabaña ya construyendo.
And so we would like to at least begin starting some solitary cabins in January.
Y ahí como tenemos nosotros dibujos templo budista tradicional.
And within the master mapping that we're doing, we have a traditional Buddhist temple, Tibetan Buddhist temple.
Y alrededor tenemos las cabañas individuales.
And around that, like kind of in a mandala, there's going to be individual solitary cabins.
Y tiene stupa.
And there's a stupa, like a monument for the enlightened mind.
Yeah. y como rueda de oración.
And we'll have prayer wheels around.
Y ahí tiene donde lee los libros.
And we'll have a beautiful library where you can read books and drink chai.
Y ahí tiene una cocina maravillosa, view.
And then a great, a big kind of more common space kitchen for community.
Y con recepción, ¿no?
And like a reception area.
Entonces, eso es un símbolo como lindo también,
And it's
¿no?
very simple, but very beautiful.
Y más abajo tiene deck.
And below, we're going to have an intercultural, like, meditation deck.
Entonces, mayoría tierra está sembrando frutales y forestales.
So most of the land is going to be used for reforestation and for, like, a food forest. And
Entonces, toda la serie disfruta, ¿no?
that all the beings,
animales.
not just humans, that all the animals, too, can also enjoy this place.
Entonces, ese proceso estamos haciendo,
And
¿no?
we're in the process. And at the very top of our land, we're going to have the like longer solitary retreat cabins. So
Ya,
there's
3
kind of
años.
sections in the land where there'll be some solitary retreats if you want to come for a couple days or a week. So you're in solitude, but you can, it's easy. You're still somewhat, not totally removed from society, holy, but then as you want to go into longer retreats, the further you go up the land, it's a month retreat, a year retreat, 3 year retreat.
Exactly.
So we have many different options for people to engage in meditation.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you separated from the land during these retreats, or do you have access to nature, such as grounding and touching earth while you're in retreat?
Oh, totally. I mean, nature is just all around you here. So yeah, absolutely. Cuando se pueden salir de su cabaña, you're in the naturaleza,
sí,
right?
puede ser, por
Yeah,
favor.
yeah. You're not gonna be locked in like Lama.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Y nuestra idea más como largo plazo, ¿cierto? Visión ese, reserva.
Yeah, and our long-term vision is actually, right now we have 8 hectares, and our long-term vision is to collaborate with people to be able to actually preserve 100 additional hectares, so 108 in total.
Conectar National Reserva.
And connecting the National Reserve. We're on the side of a National Reserve, and we'd like to reforest to connect to it.
Es un sueño, ¿no?
So that's our dream.
Entonces, eso acceso varios agua nacientes.
And that gives many different water sources.
Porque, ¿no? Entonces,
to
eso
protect.
permite tomar todos los pueblos.
And it actually just helps us to keep the water clean for all of the villages and all the beings below.
Ahora, problema, lamentablemente, mucho hace fumigando.
A problem here, even though Costa Rica is really high on ecological reservation, there's a high amount of chemical use in agriculture.
¿No? Es mucho. Y entonces, ese va en la agua, ¿cierto?
And that's contaminating water.
Y algunos toman eso,
And people drink that.
enferma.
And they get sick.
Es interdependencia,
This
¿no?
is interdependence.
Por eso todo tiene que ver la mente, ¿verdad?
And
Así
so
que,
it's
¿no?
coming again from the human mind.
Ya, mente limpia no va a
When
fumigar.
the mind is clean, you're not going to fumigate.
Ya, nosotros comprometidos no va a fumigar.
So we're
¿Por qué
obviously
eso, no?
committed to no spraying.
Porque viene dentro, ¿no?
Because
Decisión.
it's a decision that comes from the inside.
Okay.
So
Entonces,
yeah, we actually have the highest in our area. We have the highest springs, so that we're able to protect everything below. So that was actually really important for us.
God, this sounds absolutely beautiful. It sounds like a dream. And I love your vision. Love it.
We'll share the map with you too. It should be done almost next week. It's like so cool to see it in 3D, like how everything's going to be positioned and everything. So we'll share that with you.
Entonces, coméntalo. Dewachen significa tierra pura. La
The
base,
word
¿no?
Dewachen is a Tibetan word, and it means the pure land.
La mismo nos hablamos.
And so it's just like what we're talking about.
Todos somos unos.
That we're all one.
Armonía.
Harmony.
Donde no hay
Where
aflicciones.
there's no
¿no?
afflictions.
Como la conciencia pura, ¿no?
And that
Judía,
pure
¿no?
consciousness.
Es llamado Dewachen.
And that's called
El
Dewachen.
lugar de la felicidad.
It's the place of happiness.
Eso pues, ese como santuario, ¿no?
That's really what the sanctuary
Un
is.
refugio, cualquiera ser puede sanando
It's
de
a
acá.
refuge where anyone can come to heal.
Y me gusta ayudar a personas individualmente
And I
también, ¿no?
like to help people individually.
Venga persona una semana con Lama,
Come for a week with Lama.
internar con la meditación,
And let me train you in meditation
Consejo.
and advice.
realmente puede cambiar.
It can really change.
Porque hoy día nuestro mundo sufrimos falta de eso, conciencia, ¿no?
Really, our world is suffering from this lack of consciousness.
Eso, no falta de material, yo le digo.
We're
¿no?
not lacking material resources these days. Yeah, and just one of the things that I was going to share. So we're going to be sharing a very particular meditation that the head of our lineage requested Lama to share in South America, called the Sharavasti meditation. It's actually the exact teaching that the Buddha taught for 25 years in summer retreat to all of his monks. in a place called Sharvasti. And so it's actually the mindfulness of breathing. And it's like this 16 steps of mindfulness that support you to go from the mindfulness of the body to the mindfulness of sensation and feelings, to the mindfulness of mind and the nature of mind, and to the mindfulness of how reality functions. And so it actually brings one from single pointed meditation to Vipassana to Mahamudra, and it's a step-by-step path. That'll be the primary teaching that we share here. And then, of course, for anyone going into like some of the longer retreats, the Fivefold Mahamudra and 6 Yogas of Naropa is available. And as I mentioned earlier, we're actually going to start doing the Noble Silence Sharvasti meditation online soon. Maybe I think it should be ready in July or August. There'll be an opportunity for people to already start from their homes, starting to practice that.
God, this sounds absolutely beautiful. I will definitely put the links in the show notes and also include the map so that any of the viewers who are really curious and feel in alignment with this, resonate with this, and want to participate or, you know, attend for a week or a month or hell, do a 4-year solitary retreat with nature included, that they have the ability and the freedom to do so. So I think this is incredibly beautiful. And I think that it is, you know, I don't just think, I feel that this is very much necessary, needed in today's environment, in today's culture. It's the reprieve, it's the space, it's the breath, it's the pause that I think is very important and necessary in everyone's life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really so important.
So I know that we have a meditation link that we're going to provide so that people can attend. I also understand that there's music through his YouTube channel and Spotify channel and mantras.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, every Monday we do Monday meditation on compassion. So it's just a wonderful week. A wonderful way to start the week with compassion. And Lama just reminds us that any of the challenges that come up this week, like let's address those with mindfulness and compassion. It's a 30 to 40 minute meditation. Sometimes we do question and answer. So it's a great way to check in. And that's just a free meditation every Monday, and we can provide the link. And then, Lama actually, in his time in Chile, created like 6 albums on Spotify. So if you want to check them out, it's Lama Dorje on Spotify, and we can share that link. But it's just wonderful if you're in the car or washing plates or you're with your kids, or you can still connect in with mindfulness and still connect in with the energy of compassion and just utilize mantra as your object of meditation. So it's just like amazing kind of tool on the go. And then one of the other things too, we're just going to share is we bring a group to India every year. And this year we're bringing a group to India on September 15th to the 25th. And we're actually going to one of the oldest towns that are still kind of maintains the Tibetan culture called Ladakh. And it's high in the Himalayas. So we'll be in the Himalayan mountains visiting old monasteries and caves where the masters, we're going to learn about all the stories of the masters sitting around a fireside and drinking chai, and then also learning the 16-step meditation we were telling you. We're going to learn how to meditate in nature, and it's going to be such a special experience. So we'd love to invite everyone to that as well.
Yeah, I'm aiming to go to this. I want to go to this.
Okay.
I'm putting this in my calendar.
No alligators.
No gators. As long as there's no crocodiles or gators.
You'll get yaks, like the Tibetan water buffaloes.
As long as they don't try to eat me, we're okay. I don't want to be on the food chain.
It really is. We're actually, this year, we even have 5 people that are returning for their 2nd and 3rd year with us. It's just like, it's a really special experience that people,
very nice.
It's so nice to connect to these teachings and sacred places, you know, and just come back home to ourselves. And it really just invigorates our practice at home. So yeah, it's such a special experience.
Yeah, I'll add a link to this as well. And is there anything else that we should know about the retreat, the foundation, anything that's coming up that we should know about?
I would just say in general, I know we're going to share the link, but you know, sometimes like, so we'll share the link to both our GoFundMe as well as just like the normal page, but you know, any ways that people just, even if you don't feel like you can contribute financially, helping to get the word out, just like you're doing today on this show, helping to get the word out helps us to create a place for everyone. We don't really see this as our own project. We see it as ourselves facilitating this. It's a project for everybody. It's a sanctuary for everybody and a beacon of peace for humanity. So I think that any of the creative ideas that we have to come together, you know, sometimes people say, I would like to sponsor a cabin because I would like to use a cabin, you know, or sometimes people want to donate a brick to the stupa. There's so many different ways to contribute. And again, like, it's not always financial. It can be just inviting a friend to meditation. I think the whole essence of this is to create a space for people to come back home to their true nature and come back home to themselves. So there's so many different creative ways that people can get involved. We have an expanding volunteer team as well. And yeah, so we just really encourage everyone to really feel like this is also their project as well, and really wanting to like bring our collective intelligence together to bring this into being.
Well, I know a pledge that I can make because, you know, my part of my path of purpose, and, you know, if you look at my gene keys and you look at much of my astrology, one of the ways that I express myself the most is through philanthropy and through organization and bringing people together. And, you know, this podcast is new and doesn't have the outreach that many other podcasts do. So as a pledge, what I would like to do is, once this particular episode is up, I'm going to shop this episode to other podcasters who are in alignment with this message, who put out content similar to this, and expose them to the Lama and to the concept and to the retreat, to see if anyone jumps on board to want to continue this conversation on other platforms.
Amazing. That's such a great idea. I love that creativity. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Any way that I can be involved and to share the message and to help and assist is absolutely my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much. We've had beautiful conversations, and I feel like I could easily continue this for another week, and I'm sure in the near future we will. I know with you, Caroline, I want to continue conversations into other areas. You're a wealth of information, and I'm excited to continue this relationship and allow it to manifest in different areas. So I just want to check in, make sure you know, do you feel complete in the expression on all these topics, or is there something that we skipped over and missed?
Gracias. Está diciendo, ¿tienes alguna más cosa que quieres comentar o sientes como completo?
Yeah, I think it's okay, no? No? Cierto, yeah.
He said, yeah, I feel complete.
Okay. Well, it's my absolute pleasure and honor, and I have so much gratitude for being able to share this space with you. And I look forward to our relationship developing. Thank you kindly.
Gracias. Thank you so much for all of your work and all of the people's lives who you touch. We're so grateful for you.
Y yo, parte de Lama, también agradezco para ella.
And he said Lama also just really wants to thank you.
Tu trabajo maravilloso.
And the work that you're doing.
Ese uno forma de uno generoso, como la expandir la conciencia, ¿no?
It's really a form of generosity to help consciousness expand.
Eso seguramente ayuda como la mundos.
And I'm sure that it helps the world.
Cambiarla porque falta de conciencia, ¿no?
Because the world is lacking consciousness.
Y también quien está escuchando también siempre ustedes practica y compartir eso, ¿no?
And I really think that whoever is listening, it's important that you practice it and share this.
Entonces eso, estamos maravillosos, mucho agradecidos y especialmente Lelanea, ¿no?
Lelanea. In Spanish we say Lelanea.
As long as it hits 3 syllables, I'm sure it's referencing me.
Okay. Thank you, Lelanea.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias.